And welcome back, students. As I said before, we are going to pick right back up where we left off. So in here, one of the things that we remember is that when we ran this program, we did not get the results that we expected. We got 12 and 11, but it didn't say what we would expect. If we had 12 and 11 normally, we would get 23. Now, the reason for that is because even though we are putting in a numeric type, the program is treating everything as a string. So what we need to do is instead do a typecast similar to how we did before with strings. Remember when we did a concatenation of a string and a number? So for example, if I did print and I did, let's just say hello, and then I did like 5. All right. When I did that, if you remember, it would just come back as an error. So what we had to do before was do this str in front of it, and then it would convert it into a string. So if we just run that quick, Bob, and then 12, 11, and there's my hello 5. All right. Now, the thing with this is str was our magical friend. In order to get these to be actual numbers, what I need to do in front of them is add a int. So for example, if I do int and put that in front of number, this will now be treated like it is an integer. So now I have int number. So if I run this program again, Bob, 12, 11. All right, 12, 11. There is my 23 I'm looking for. Now, one thing to note about this is that, yes, this program is now working the way I want this output to be. I'm getting 23. However, if I were to do something else again, so let's say I come in and add a print, and I say now number, and let's say times 2. If I go ahead and do number times 2, and I rerun my program, and let's do Bob, 12, 11, you can see now I have 12, 12. So I'm back to the same problem that I originally had started with. So what I need to do is actually not just typecast right here, but if I want to typecast the actual values, I'm going to want to typecast it back in the very beginning. So I'm actually just going to remove a couple of these print statements here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put our typecast right here. So for example, if I say int of number, and then we do int of number 2. All right, let's go ahead and run that. You'll notice that it gives an error. Now that's because even though before we had done it inside the print statement, what we are actually looking to do is do the typecast afterwards. So you can't do it here in the variable declaration. You have to do it afterwards. You're like, well, what's if I put it here and say, well, let's put int around this piece here, int of the input. So if we run the module there, we got Bob, we do 12 and 11. You notice that we didn't get an error. So if we do the same thing here for the other input, say int, and we put another parenthesis, and we run Bob, 12, 11. Again, no errors. So let's go ahead and try to print number plus number 2. If we did our code correctly, we should see 23. Run our code. And there we go. So the ultimate goal here is when you are wanting to change a variable from, let's say, a string from our input, we have to add int in front of it if we want to be a numeric type. So just one little thing to add in there in terms of your code. Now, the one thing also to remember is that this is simply just for integer types. If I were to go ahead and put, let's say, 2.5 in here, you can see that I get an error. All right, it pretty much says that this is invalid for int with base 10, 2.5. Why is that? Well, is 2.5 an integer? No. So if I wanted this to be, let's say, a double type like this, I would simply just have to use a different typecast. So instead of using int, I'm going to go ahead and change this to float. So if I'm expecting the person to enter in a decimal, I can use a float. So now if I run my program and I put in 2.5, you can see that the program doesn't crash. So let's just do 2.5 and 1.5, and of course we get 4.0. So that's things just to keep in mind there. If, of course, let's say I made the second number an int, of course I can do that as well. And if I run the program, Bob, 12.5, and let's just say 2, you can see that with that, it's always going to keep as a decimal answer as we would expect it to be. So that is our overview there with getting the input, because now we not only know how to get input, but we know how to handle numeric values. So that's going to wrap up what we have to talk about input. The next time I see you, we will actually start diving into handling conditionals. So until then.